I always like to start my guides out with the weapons, then the soldiers. I feel like it's really important here. I suggest sticking around if you didn't know this about the flamethrowers themselves compared to the units. So, starting out with the flamethrowers, the Germans have two different flamethrowers. The Flammenwerfer, I might be saying it wrong, I apologize. 35 and 41 are two different, one upgrade from the other, and of course, the ROKS 2 and 3 are flamethrowers of the Soviets and the Finnish soldiers. So if we look at 35, the real difference here between these two, 35 and 41, is the fact that one has more range than the other. So the 35 has 24 meters worth of range, and then the 41 has 32. However, both of these have a max clip size, or like the size of the actual tank, is 100. Now that is very good. However, when we look at the Soviets and the Finnish, they have one thing that stands out above the Germans pretty heavily. So with their flamethrowers, I don't see a single difference between the two. So maybe there's a hidden stat that I don't know about, just throwing it out there. Well, they do have two versions. Ultimately, or maybe it's just for each faction, who knows. But their big thing is, number one, their clip size, or their magazine size, is 70. So the tank is only 70 compared to 100 with the Germans. However, this is the determining factor. The max range is 41 meters. That is almost 10 more meters than the 41 for the Germans. That's a big deal. That's crazy. The range is so important when it comes to the flamethrowers. If you can't get to your target, you're going to have a bad time. That is what we found out so far there. Now, in terms of the actual soldiers themselves, usually we talk about the Finnish having a higher regeneration rate, but flamethrower units are considered to be, they're just considered to be normal units. They're not like special forces or anything like that. So they come with just a base health of 200. Their stamina is 125, which is not great. Neither of these are really great, so they're very squishy and they die really easily. Keep that in mind when you're playing as the flamethrower. We're going to have more on that in just a second. Now let's look at the range of this unit. I think it's really important to understand how this is actually going to work and how it becomes kind of a pain in the butt if you're in first person. So let's start with that. As you can see, the range we can see in third person goes all the way up to about 40 meters. Now if I click out of that and go into first person, well, actually let's do third person first. So if I go to shoot this, you can see exactly where it's landing. And that's fine, like that's what you want to be able to see. But when you're in, as I blow myself up, just watch. But if I'm in third person like this, I'm not exactly sure how far I'm actually throwing this. Granted, his body was outlined, but with an enemy and so on, that's going to be difficult to actually see. If I'm trying to hit him, I have a guess about where he's at, but the flames are kind of messing it up. It's kind of making it difficult to actually see. So the range is really good. My point with this is, if I'm going to be using this, granted I'm out of fire already, if I'm going to be using this, I'm going to be doing like third person at this range because of the fact that I can't see as well. Adding to the range portion of this, it's very important to know that you can actually arc your flame over top here. You already see that I tried this and this guy ran out of fuel right off the bat. I didn't realize I didn't have much more. So let's take 2 on it at least, and I'm going to show you how this is actually going to work. So in first person, I can't see over. This is technically like low angle third person, but still. But in third person, pressing T, I can now move the soldier and get a better angle and see if I'm actually going to hit him. So there we go, I hit him. I can keep hitting guys. Now, you may say like, okay, this is kind of staged out. Yeah, it is staged out a little bit, but you saw a second ago there was no way to actually see over this. And you can like snipe guys. Now you may have the issue that guys just start running through the forest and so on, but where I want this to be most important to you guys is when you have a vehicle here. Now we're going to go over the armor section in just a second, but just know that in shooting over this, you can hit the vital parts of a vehicle in order to stop them in their tracks. Alright guys, let's look at the resupply real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. As far as I know, there's no way to actually resupply the flamethrower. If I'm wrong, I will admit it when somebody can prove it, and I will also pin the comments so that way people can reference to that. So look down below for that. But as of right now, this is your supply truck. Even if you were to throw the flame, even if you were to throw your flame fluid in there, it doesn't make a difference. Here's a engineer truck. We can look at that real quick. Still nothing in there that I can actually take from. And then finally the fuel truck. Now the fuel truck to me I thought would make sense because that's what's in the flamethrower, but you don't have that option, and again if you move this stuff over nothing changes. So unfortunately you only get a limited amount of fuel, and in real life that's kind of how it was at 4 gallons. It goes without saying, but again, with 200 HP, these guys are pretty easily able to be killed. Alright, now for the death test, because this is very important with the flamethrower unit. You know, in the war, if anybody, the thing that they feared the most was dying this type of death, where somebody would shoot the canister, it would blow up, or a grenade goes off, hits the canister, it blows up. To be fair, just because you shoot a canister doesn't mean it's going to automatically go up in flames. It could mean that just the fluid leaks out. Insanely dangerous when you're covered in fuel. So I take a shot. I did end up hitting him in the back. Must have been on the spine. Didn't end up killing him. It was on the actual tank itself. So the tank is not penetrable where it will blow up. So this much we know. If I take another guy, I throw a grenade, take him over. Oh, what's this? That doesn't look good. Oh my gosh. Okay, so again, he didn't end up blowing up. We do have another test here. I feel as if I've seen it blow up. I know for sure the tanks do. But, so no, we'll go right and hit this guy. This poor guy. So the tank doesn't actually blow up. Does come off the body, of course, as we can see here. You can pick that up. So there, in terms of the actual death, you don't have to worry about it actually exploding. So what is the real strategy of using the flamethrower? Of course, we have the armored vehicles, which we'll go over later. But for now, let's focus in on what made them really good. The thing is, when you have units hidden in buildings and forests, behind any type of barricade and so on, that is where the flamethrower would come into handy, especially in trenches in World War I. That's where it all started. So as you can see, this guy's walking through. There's no soldiers to be seen unless you're in this top-down view. You see all the soldiers in these different buildings. And the idea is to go up and start a fire. When you do this, you can see at the top right-hand corner, it's going to say World Burn. The guys inside, what happens is, a lot of times the AI will run out of the building, running through the fire and instantly kill themselves, or you get guys that sit in there, like this guy. No big deal. Just having a smoke. Until he's not. So when you're using the flamethrower, I like to actually take out a lot of these buildings if I'm in the area of like a base of sorts. Now, mind you, we talked about the squishiness of the actual flamethrower unit, and it's never the more true. Okay, they're just very squishy. So the idea is to use them as effective as possible, burning people out of buildings, making sure that they, you know, that their scenery is fiery as well. Another thing here, actually, I'm going to take these units out because I think you guys get the idea here. And we are going to put them in like the tree line here, which this is not exactly the best idea in the world. A lot of times you can get more dense forest like this over here. This is what you look for. This is what I look for, is I try to look for anything that's like very dense in fauna. Then from there, you light the forest on fire. Everybody, unfortunately, I did end up hitting these guys. This guy actually kind of crawled through the bush and caught on fire. But if you do this, as you can see, as I waited a little bit here, you'll see that this whole building is just collapsing. Anything inside is gone. And that's the idea. That's what we want to see with a flamethrower. So whether it's clearing a forest full of soldiers running through, or it's destroying the buildings, there is one extra thing that can help you on the battlefield. if you set up, which unfortunately I didn't bring out the artillery, that's my mistake here, but let's just pretend that this artillery is still occupied and so on. But the problem with this artillery is that all this forest is in the way. What you can do to not only give it more line of sight, but also to clear a path for the actual shells, is you can light the forest up. And I talked about this in the recruit or the infantry guide that I had made years ago, or a year ago or so. But like, it's so important to give yourself as much line of sight as possible and no obstacles to have to be, you know, to be hit while you're trying to shoot your artillery. Now for the armor test. This one I'm most excited about, specifically because if you've ever played this game for any amounts of time in which a flamethrower comes out of the woods, out of the rubble, and throws a flame at your tank, it is a pretty terrifying feeling because you don't know when your guys are going to pop out like little hot pockets. What I'd like to see today with these armored vehicles, and as you can see, it's light vehicles, light tanks, medium tanks, and heavy tanks. I would like to see where the points of interest are for the flamethrower. As well, I would like to specifically use the Soviets because I know a lot of people like using the Germans in general. And so let's see how this fares. So pretty much what we learned from the armored vehicles is that as soon as the engine catches on fire, the enemy is pretty much SOL. This is one canister. We're going to see if we can't get all of them. Yep, so again, if you take out the engine, guys, it's going to make a massive difference. It is a absolute tank destroyer. Does not matter the size of the tank. So long as you're hitting the engine, it's going to pop. Alright guys, some really important tips that I want you to get from the Flamethrower if you're going to be using him is, number one, you notice that he's always got the Flamethrower at his side, like he's hip firing with it, right? And even when I fire and I'm moving forward back and forth, he's still hip firing. Now if I aim and I fire, he's still at hip fire. However, if I move the soldier at any direction, he holds it like a rifle. Now this is important because you want the best, you want to have a perfect line of sight. If you don't, you could clip something like this. For instance, if I walk up, you notice that, like, if I go to fire this, I'm gonna light this on fire in front of me. And there's soldiers right there, so I'm like, oh, I need to get over it. But anytime that I stop moving, see, there's a chance that you're gonna be collateral damage. There's a video on that in just a second. So how do I fix that, right? Well, first off, the soldier itself, the best option that you can add is just have him manually do that. Manually go to the location. Then you notice how now I'm in that position. I'm always in that position. It's a very weird thing. I don't know why it does that, but that's something to know. The next thing is this right here. If I want to not be standing with this hip fire stuff and I press Alt, then I go into a better position again where I'm holding the Flamethrower like a rifle. It may not seem like that big of a deal, but I promise you guys, it is such a massive problem that gets I've killed my own guys so many times with that issue. And so here's the video of that, by the way. Another tip, which is pretty simple, and most people I feel do this. What you do is you lay your guy down and you have him hold the doorway or an opening. What I personally like to have is I like to have like a little destructed area, like let's say you take out part of this wall and then you lay him down. Providing there's nothing that's going to clip the wall, you should be alright. But in laying down, the reaction time is not like real life. We talked about it before, the historical facts about the Flamethrower is that when you pulled the trigger, there would be like a delay and then the fire would shoot out. So in the same respect, as soon as I'm hitting it, it is reactive. So anything that runs by, if you know that soldiers are running past this point, this is an awesome opportunity to lay them down, get them in a little bit of a cone, somewhere where people have to run through. You could even put barbed wire. You could line barbed wire along the road, like right over here, so that way it forced soldiers to walk in front, and then he would just do the rest. Any soldiers that were burning, the other soldiers would be like, oh, there's somebody in there, and they try to go over here and possibly get caught in the collateral as well. Now I'm going to give you my final thoughts on the Flamethrower, and let me tell you something, this is the most love-hate relationship that I've had in the game. I am struggling hardcore with this one. I had my overalls and everything, and I thought this is good, and then I started contemplating other things. So let's look at the really good first. So the really good things that I like about it is the fact that you can take out any tank like that. You don't have to have a 70 filled canister to be able to take out a tank. You can use up to 20 up to 40 when it comes to the heavier tanks, as you saw in the video. Yeah, they're devastating in that regard. Now, if you don't have a line of sight to that back of the tank or from the side of the tank, broadside, you can still hit that engine, no problem. So there's a lot of good there, but if you're not on the side of the vehicle, you're in trouble, unless it's a light vehicle, of course. So early game, he's really powerful as well because of that. You can take them out. He's good against artillery, all that. Up to that 40 meter range, which is really nice, but it comes with its downfall of having to be in third person to really be sure that you're actually hitting it. So that does go into the bad, but the other positives is, of course, clearing a forest, giving your artillery more space to be able to shoot their mortars or whatever, their shells at them, and having more line of sight in the forest as well because you've gotten rid of the fauna. The other portion of it is taking out the buildings. That I really like that. I love being able to eliminate the soldiers within buildings that are hiding. This happens all the time. just trust me when I say this. If you haven't been playing it long enough and you're playing Conquest specifically, it is very fun to just go up, you know, sneak in and then burn it out, or burn out some, I don't know, get behind a soldier, or getting behind artillery and then burning out the artillery is so much fun. So yeah, there's that. Now on the bad side of it, here's the issue. The stealth and the hit points are probably my #1 issues. Hit points specifically because they die super easy. At 200, that's really baseline for all the soldiers. So that is kind of frustrating. However, the other frustrating portion of it is the fact that if you put him in a bush, you can tell him not to attack unless someone attacks you. Well, again, he doesn't have the hit points, so you want him to attack on sight. So if he's attacking on sight and he lights the bush that he's hiding in on fire, he's dead. I've had so many collateral damages with my own soldiers, let alone himself. So I can't say that I necessarily like that. And so you might be saying, well, which is the best way to go about it? I'd say keep him within a group of soldiers. That's why I like the Pioneer Squad, starting out with the Germans, is so powerful, is because there's mass numbers. You have an AT rifleman, you have a flamethrower, you have the SMG, you have the MG. So there's a lot of like diversity in that specific unit, and that's why we face the Soviets, because that's what you're generally going to face when you're using this unit. Yeah, again, I like that portion of it, but I don't like that there's just so much collateral that comes with this unit, and if you're not in the right position, he's Thanos, like, just gone. So there is good, there is bad. The high highs when it actually works is incredible. You know, of course, we talked about the sniper in my sniper guide, where he was able to eliminate specific units, but not in a fast time span. This guy you need to get him expecting to lose him. And if you're only going to fight soldiers, you're misusing this character in general, because the idea is to use him tactically. This is a very, very tactical unit. This is a very good unit if you're using the tactics properly. But once he's eliminated, it feels bad. Like, that portion of it feels bad. So, that's my thoughts on it. In terms of the AI score, I'm gonna give the AI score a 4. If the AI score is facing me, I give them a freaking 8. Okay, because they are so good. I don't know what it is. Like, when they're coming at you, you make it a priority to try to kill that specific flamethrower guy. That's what I do, at least. If I see a flamethrower guy on the battlefield, I want to kill him ASAP, because he's devastating to me. But when I have him, I don't feel as powerful. I don't feel like they're making as big of a difference, and I find myself getting my own guys killed. On the flip side, when I'm using him, I'd give him a 6, just because I know how to run guys through cover, especially in like a landscape where you can't, you know, like watching the terrain. I give him a 6 because I can do a lot with that. I can go around behind artillery, destroy that. I can get to a tank without worrying about getting killed, and make that clutch, even if he dies. Usually he does die, but sacrificing a flamethrower guy to take out a heavy tank or a medium tank that's destroying everything, or artillery that's destroying everything, is way worth it. And if he survives, he just made his money back, in my opinion. So that's what I'd say about that in terms of the user. So my final score for the flamethrower is going to be a 5. Surprisingly, I actually thought it would be a lesser of a unit in my eyes. But the more I've used them, the more I've appreciated what actually can be done in very historically accurate ways of utilizing him on the battlefield. So guys, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And without further ado, hit the like also, please. Help a brother out. So, without further ado, guys, I will see you in the next video.